Life at sea can be rewarding, but the pressures can be challenging too. Seize the Mind trains seafarers to become mental health first aiders, vital for both well-being and safety on board. Mental health first aid helps identify depression, anxiety, and burnout, creating safer, more supportive environments. Our globally recognized courses equip crew with the tools to support themselves and to support each other. Support your crew's mental well-being. Book your training with Seize the Mind today. Seize the Mind, mental health first aid for seafarers. Visit seizethemind.co.uk for more information.
Welcome to this episode of YPA's Tales from Superyacht Laundry. I am very excited to introduce our next guest. She is also ex-crew member and has forged her own business after coming out of the yachting industry. Welcome, Katrina D'Artois, who is the Yacht Nutritionist. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Although we did speak, I'm a little bit stressed, but that's, life as a mother and business owner. So, yes.
A lot's going on. Yeah.
I did tell you that I am a terrible mother at the moment because I gave my child a packet of Whatsits to keep her quiet.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes, and if it works, it works.
Mum guilt. I'm calling a nutritionist, and I've literally gave my child some luminous orange snacks.
There's nothing wrong every now and then with these things. Actually, I was looking at a study. I sent it to one of my clients. She's a chief stew, and she's pregnant right now. Nobody knows that she's pregnant on board. And so we've had a few back and forth about basically like nutrition during pregnancy and stuff like that. I mean, it's not my specialization, but I do remember covering it at uni. And there was a study that came up, and I sent it to her now, basically about, there's two lines, I'm totally going off track already, but there's two lines of kind of parenting with food. There's like one extreme camp that's like, don't give my kids sugar until they're like 5 years old. And the other camp is like, okay, expose my kids to everything so that there's no like good or bad type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. They want to have like put the broccoli with the lollies, right? And
I'm that camp. I think they call it kind of, it's like a French style, it's like always having dessert after a main meal, because then it just it's not a novelty.
Exactly. And that's kind of the line that we want to be, where everything is kind of normal. Pretty much.
Yeah. So no. So okay, like I don't feel quite so guilty now. Thanks. So so obviously we've known each other for a little while now.
It's been about a year now. I think that we were in contact.
Yeah. So obviously I'm keeping track of all women that have left the industry and gone on to do something else, and your story is more. It's quite inspirational, to be honest, because obviously after leaving you decided to take on a few challenges, which I completely admire, but before we get into where you are, how you got to where you are now, let's go back to the beginning. Dun, dun, dun. So how the hell did you end up on a yacht?
It's a crazy story, really, and I'm one of those people that just got so lucky because I didn't have to do any dock walking. I hear the stories now of all the green crew dock walking, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so nerve-wracking. But I was basically running a yoga studio in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I was the yoga studio manager with a really good friend of mine at the time, and we were teaching yoga classes, and then I thought it was a family that was coming into my classes. So there was an older man, an older woman, and a younger guy. 3 of them were coming in, and I thought they were dad, mom, son, but it was captain, chief stew, and first mate. And I thought they were
it was a little boat family.
Yeah, so it was like a little 40-meter. That was my first boat, actually. That boat with them. But they were coming into my yoga classes because the captain had broken his back. and he found years before, and he found that doing hot yoga really helped with mobility and easing tension in his back. So he brought his chief stew and the mate to the hot yoga classes, and they were coming like 2 or 3 times a week, and they were based in Halifax over that whole summer. And I got to know them really well, and at the end of the summer, they asked me if I wanted to join the boat, and if I was, wanted to come on board, they could use a yoga instructor. So I think I was 22 at the time, and I was actually studying. So I was studying exercise science, and I wanted to finish. So I still had like a whole year to go. So I finished, and I joined the next summer, actually in Palma. So they flew me from Nova Scotia to Palma to cross the Atlantic to St. Martin.
Wow. I mean, I'm just a bit, you didn't graft to get on. You didn't even know that it existed. It's not like you were like, I want to get into it. Or did you? Did you know?
No, I had no idea what a big white boat was. And to be honest, okay, so when I was chatting with a mate who was coming to my classes, I saw him out one of those nights, like a Friday night after a class. I went out and had some beers and a burger because balance, right? And then, so I saw him out and about. And then the next morning he came to take my yoga class, and I was like, oh, hey, I saw you out and about, in my Canadian accent. I saw you out and about.
Out and about.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, on the boat. And I was like, what boat? What are you talking about? He's like, the boat. And I'm like, what boat? He's like, I work on the boat. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it was really funny. And then I had seen there was this big white boat in port. Boats like that, even though it was, for us it's small, 40 meters, this was 12 years ago. Yeah, 12 years ago. They didn't really go to Nova Scotia frequently or often at all. There's more of an industry there now, but I had noticed the boat, and I was like, oh, that boat. And that was my boat for about 3 years.
All right. So you've just been plucked, this yoga teacher.
I got plucked. Yeah.
We're just gonna plop this yoga teacher on board. Like, what were your first impressions? Like, what have you done?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know how to clean. I had no idea what cleaning was. I had no idea the high standards.
Gross.
That was my shock, was like, holy shit, this is insane. Like, this is extreme, like the toothpick and then the cotton bud cleaning, but then we get used to it. And now I do have, now a higher standard than anyone I know who hasn't worked in yachting, like out of all my family and stuff. I'm the crazy one now because I have such a high standard of
Yeah, you're OCD like the rest of us. Like,
exactly.
It's really hard to go back to civvy dirt when you've had yacht clean.
Taps with his marks on the taps. Yeah.
Mine's glass. Yeah. I do struggle with glass. I've got dogs, so we've got glass in our doors, and I'm constantly like, yeah. Cleanliness is next to godliness, they say.
For these guys, I have the flour sack rags that we only use for these. Yeah. Yeah.
It is an occupational hazard to working on board. So you're on board, you're learning how to clean. How do you did you cope with it? Had you been away much beforehand? Like traveled much?
Yeah, so I've always been super adventurous. It's just a part of my nature. I kind of still am. But I've gotten a lot of it out of my system now, obviously from being paid to travel the world, which is great. But obviously with the nature of my work and what I do, my biggest struggle in yachting obviously was the food. It's not something that I hide away from or I don't talk about anymore. Obviously I talk about it a lot now because it's my profession. But so I had food issues long before yachting. I was, very obsessed with my fitness. I struggled with binge eating, emotional eating, coping with food, all that kind of stuff. And so going on board, I had no idea how much I would struggle and suffer from, one, not being able to exercise as frequently as I was used to doing before. And that kept, my exercise kept me kind of stable with food. So then I couldn't rely on that anymore. And then there was so much food around. I was just I was out of control binging and just felt like I was eating nonstop. And
How
I
long were
was.
you on? How long were you on board when you kind of recognised that maybe something's not right with this? Because obviously, my next question is, what do you love? What did you love and hate about it? But obviously, hate's probably a strong word, but a difficulty arise, and a lot of crew
Yeah.
members find this on board. There are some times when you live in that environment, there is something about your personality or the way that you're living that you have to face, because you're kind of being forced into another routine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I could pinpoint a time where I knew that there was an issue. I mean, I knew I had an issue. The problem with my eating disorder and my disorder eating was that I thought everyone else was the problem, right? And that why isn't everyone gluten-free? Why isn't everyone avoiding sugar? Why is everyone not eating organic? Like, I was kind of like orthorexic slash like binge eating, like bit of bulimia mixed in there and like stuff like that, you know? Like it was, yeah, it was pretty severe, but I was obsessed with health, right? And this is what the yoga industry taught me, what the fitness industry taught me, and I was like, why is everyone else like eating all this stuff that's toxic for them, right? But I was the one that was actually, I had the problems because I couldn't cope with my environment that I was in. It was sending me spiraling. So um, I I think I only realized that the severity of my control that I needed. So I needed my environment to be perfect for me to be okay, and that's no way to live, right? So my first med season, so that boat that I was on for 3 years, we didn't actually go to the med. We did like East Coast of Canada, we did South America, Central America, all up the West Coast of USA. We were in California for about a year as well. And then I got another job on a boat. And I flew from St. Lucia to Europe onto another boat. That was my second boat. That was my first med season. And I gained so much weight. Like in 3 months, I think it was like 10 kilos in 3 months or something like that. Like it
Is
was.
that like, okay, it makes me intrigued, because a lot of people say they gain weight when they go to America. Like the America, like North, yeah, especially in America, but like normally it's the other way around. What was it about the food? Because all of the food was alien to you to then get control. What do you think?
I think it was the pizza and pasta and pastries. And I
Pastries,
was
bread.
eating a lot of pastries. Yeah, we were in Capri for a long time, and I remember the chef was going ashore to buy these pastries that the guests didn't eat. It was for the guests, they didn't eat them, so we all came down to the crew mess, and I was the laundry girl, and there would be just a tray of pastries there, and I'd just sneak out the laundry, go eat one, and be like, damn it, I shouldn't have eaten that, and oh my god, okay, I'm gonna have another one, go out, sneak out and have another one, and then go back, right? And it was like, it is funny, like everyone jokes about stews gaining weight and like can't stop eating and this kind of stuff, but it severely affects their mental health. And for me, it was horrible. I mean, not so much like I wasn't in danger zone of, dark thoughts and stuff like that, but I did hate myself. It was a horrible way to live and to think about myself, and I just was so unhappy.
There is a settling in period, like having whatever. It's worse I found it worse when I was a chief steward, because I could buy whatever I wanted then, if there were things that I wanted. But then I kind of got into a rhythm of, like not cutting down carbs, but like making sure that when the chef produced food, it was more heavy on the, making sure my portion sizes were correct. Leaning into the chef's cooking, as long as your chef is good, is giving out healthy food. I lent into that a little bit, which helped. And then cutting out snacks, like stay away from the snack cupboard. But mine was totally. Macaroons when I was on charter. Like those things, you can just put a whole one in your mouth and nobody knows that you've got one.
It just melts so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing.
But the thing is, when you do struggle with like binge eating and like emotional eating and that kind of stuff, it really doesn't matter what the food is. Like whether I like it or not, I'm actually eating it. But now, obviously I have such better coping mechanisms. I've learned all through this stuff. I know what foods I like and what foods I don't like because I don't emotionally eat anymore and stuff like that. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating.
So obviously working on board, going to the med, you're putting on a bit of weight. How did it rectify itself while you were on board?
No,
did you reach out? Did you learn anything new?
No, I left that boat. So I was on board for 3 months, and this was actually around the time that I was going to Australia. So I did end up going to Australia at this time. Oh, that's a bit blurry. I think this would have been about 2016, 2017. And then my first year of uni was 2018. It feels like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. What are we, 2024 now? Yeah, I mean,
so before we go on to what you did next, what were your can you name a highlight and a low of being? So like what was, one of your favorite moments of your time on yachts? Like what did you like the most?
I think definitely the crew, I would say. Getting to meet some of my best friends on board and the crew bonding and the crazy stories and the nights out, of course, having crazy nights out in these incredibly exotic locations. Yeah, I would definitely, it's the crew that makes your experience and bonding with the crew and just everyone. It has that kind of like, university type of fraternity.
Did you have a magical moment where's what you ever have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm actually here and this is cool?
I mean, my favorite moments I think were when we were probably underway and laying on the bow looking up at the stars, and that's those would be my like really magical moments of I felt like my life was kind of aligning, right? And I think, to be honest, this is going to sound so woo-woo, and I'm not a really woo-woo person. Like I'm a little bit spiritual, but I'm way more scientific. But there's obviously a lot of science, a lot of things that science can't explain. But I 100% manifested how I wanted my life to be, right? Like I would lay on the bow, looking up at the stars, and for some crazy reason, I wanted to go to university, right? Because I knew yachting. I knew it wasn't a be-all, end-all for me. Like it wasn't a long-term career. It was like a thing for here and now type of thing. Like use it, have fun, make money, explore, adventure, that kind of stuff. But I never wanted it to be a long-term career. And I remember looking at the stars and being like, I want to go to university. Wow.
So you got so obviously it leads into obviously the next bit is obviously when did it start to change? You're like, actually, I want to go to uni. Or was that it? Was that your, or was it a bit of, I'm not really in control of myself. I want to go to uni to work out.
Yeah, well, so there's
nutrition,
a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, when we were in California, I went to go see like a hypnotherapist to try and help me. I went to Australia and I went and I saw a psychologist at the time who, within our first session, told me I should be on medication and this and that. And I was like, I know I'm not bipolar. My brother he had bipolar disorder. And I was like, I'm not bipolar. I literally have an eating disorder. I was like, I need help with this. And she's like, we can put you on this and that. And I was like, I'm going to go bye. So that was a really bad experience, which is unfortunate because obviously like psychologists can really help someone. They could have probably really helped me a lot. I did end up seeing someone afterwards when I went to uni. But it was, like through my yachting career was also me dabbling in how to get better, how to help myself, like learning different tools and techniques and, more yoga trainings, Pilates trainings and this and that. But also through that, I was looking in the wrong places. So where my whole idea of like, I need to go to university came from was because any Tom, Dick, or Harry would say something to me about food and I would believe them. Someone says, oh, Kat, oats are bad. You probably shouldn't eat oats because of this, this, this. I'm like, oh my God, okay, it would instill so much fear in me. I'd be so scared to then eat oats. But I'm taking what they're saying because I don't know any better. And so I then realized, holy shit, I need to educate myself because I need to learn the research, what the science says. I need to learn how to understand literature. what it's actually saying rather than just believing what everyone is saying to me, because I realized how toxic that was for me, and it was having a direct effect on my emotional state, my relationships. Everything for me revolved around how I was with food and with my body. So that was very important for me to fix because it was ruining my life, basically.
So when was the day you were like, right, I'm going to do it? When was this like, right, this is my last one, I'm done? Or how did it come about?
I need to think about this for a second. So I still temp. So I went to Australia on a seafarer's visa. And then the chief stew at the time, she said that she knows, no, so it was the chief stew of that 40 meter I worked on. And she said, hey, Kat, she was Australian. She said, hey, Kat, Australia is opening up and giving a lot of student visas for Canadians. Maybe you should apply, because it was something that I'd talk about often. And then I did apply. And then I went to that boat in Europe where I gained so much weight in Europe. And then I got accepted for my visa. So then I went to Australia on a student visa.
Student visa. So you've decided after all this time to go back to uni. So, were you in the uni bar, like living large?
No, because I had no money because it all went for my tuition fees. So what was it? So I did, my first year was actually of naturopathy because I thought I wanted to be a naturopath because I love natural medicine, I love herbs, all this kind of stuff, how it's going to have an effect on you. Anything natural is great, right? I mean, not necessarily, but I thought everything natural was great. Anything natural can also be quite toxic for you and dangerous. And so I did my first year, I did naturopathy. This would have been in 2017. And this is when I switched to a mainstream public university for my degree in human nutrition, because the chemistry instructor was telling the class, the one who was teaching us naturopathy, and she was saying that we should avoid any white food. And so I was studying naturopathy, and this was this is where the chemistry instructor told me that avoid anything white. And if you say that to someone that has like an eating disorder or disordered eating, or believes everything someone says, like I did, there I was eating sushi, my favorite food in the world, thinking I was doing something bad for my body, right? So every time I was eating the sushi, I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't do this. This is bad for me. I shouldn't have this rice. Oh my God, this is toxic, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, this is what I don't need. This is bad for me. I need to go actually learn the real science behind everything. And so I switched universities, and I went to a public, because the naturopathy one was private and a little bit, kind of woo-woo-ish. But I went to a proper science medical university.
So what was it like transitioning into education? Did you love education before, or was it?
No. I was always a terrible student because I loved to socialize, but I was so dedicated to this. It was my, I don't know, I was so drawn to it. I cannot explain it to anyone, because a lot of people think I'm crazy for then doing a 4-year degree at the age of 28 after already working in yachting. And I had been offered during university, I temped in yachting, right? And I was offered a lot of HOD positions with 2-2 rotation and all these, great jobs. I turned them all down, right, to finish my degree. And I can't tell you why, I did love studying. For someone in high school that was such a terrible student, because I loved just to chat. I never did my homework. Then I went and did a full-on science degree. It was not easy,
amazing.
But I loved it.
It's absolutely amazing. I'd love to go to university. My problem is I like too many separate things, to be honest. Probably.
You can always do temp stuff. You can always take little classes here and there.
Yeah, I think there's so many fascinating things. I mean, it would just be a dream to be able to go back to university and actually. So yeah, I have so much admiration for what you've done. It's quite incredible.
My goal, I would love to get my PhD, but that would be another 5 years of study, and where do you put it all in? Yeah, and a lot of money.
But also a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot.
Maybe sometime. Maybe sometime. So you're the oldest person at uni?
I thought I was. I felt like I was, but I wasn't. There were some older ladies in class as well. It definitely tends to be nutrition is definitely a female dominant discipline for sure. With majority women and some older women in there. A lot of maybe nurses. Nurses had gone to study nutrition and stuff.
So like in your summer holidays and stuff, were you going back on boats?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And all my breaks. All my Easter breaks, Christmas break, summer holidays, yeah.
Good on you. To study as well as work, that's quite a complicated yo-yo effect,
Yeah, I worked at a gym as well. So when I was living in Australia and studying on campus, I was working at a local gym, doing the evening shift from like 6 until midnight or something like that sometimes.
So obviously going to university was you like moving ashore. Obviously you're going into something where you're going to be creating, you've got your classmates and everything else. So did you feel, was it difficult to transition ashore, or did it help having classmates and, do you know what I mean? Like having a common cause with others, if you know what I mean?
I think it was easier studying and being a student, right? And living that student lifestyle. There was a period where I wasn't, and I was just working. I was working at a winery in McLaren Vale in South Australia, and that was very challenging because it didn't have the same excitement as yachting did. It was still hospitality and customer service, but it wasn't the same, and obviously the money wasn't the same either, and it was depressing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've said it on many episodes. I'm yet to find an crew member that works in hospitality.
Yeah,
because everything else is a downgrade. You've got to be pretty determined to go back into it.
I remember just saying, like, I just want to go back to a boat. I'll just go back to a boat. Why am I working here? I'll just go, like, why am I working here for this money? I'd rather I just go back to a boat.
Yeah. I say that all the time, but I can't go back now.
You're stuck now.
I'd quite like to go for a break. I'd just be a laundry stew.
It's a holiday. Exactly.
Just let me
take a holiday.
I'd just take it's a little mini break for me. All I got to do is just go in there, listen to podcasts and music and just...
Laundry is the best though. Laundry is the best.
It's so funny because when you are starting out and you're junior, you're like, I just want to get out of the laundry. But when you're senior, all you want to do is go back.
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny because... So I did 3 years of uni and then COVID hit, and 3 years of uni, COVID hit. I took a year off, so 1 year sabbatical from my course, and went back to yachting. And I was so looking forward to going back to yachting because I think I wrote it was like a 27-page report on the differences in different countries between the food they sell for children at McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, and Subway. And it was the differences between England, Canada, US, New Zealand, and Australia. So like those kind of the 5 like leading economic countries, right? And this report, it was interesting, but it was also so lengthy and so wordy. And I applied for a yacht job during COVID when unis shut and all that kind of stuff. And all I wanted to do was just vacuum walls. I was like, I'm so brain dead. I'm like done with study right now. Please just get me on the vacuum.
Let me dust back. I just want to dust back.
Dust back 4 days, please. I don't want to think about anything.
I used to like dust vacuum because you could have your headphones in and you just be bopping around and get into your own zone. Like, go detail that cabin. I'm like, right, okay, I'm off.
Totally. No, I love it.
It used to always be a bit annoying when your crew members standing in the doorway and been watching you for ages as you like bob.
You're like, how long have you been there?
Well, you started to sing. That's happened to me a couple of times. I was singing and then all of a sudden I'm like, scared me to death. Hopefully they haven't recorded it. Right, so you've done your degree now, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's all done. Dusted.
It was So hard. It was so hard. Not necessarily the study, but just being a bloody student is so difficult. You know, when you don't have mom to cook you meals, you don't have someone to do your laundry, you're paying for it yourself. It's just, yeah, it's difficult. It was hard.
I've got a lot of respect for you. I really, really do. Like, anybody's that dedicated. We've actually had a couple of ladies that have been on the podcast that have taken that route, that have left yachting and they've gone back to study, which shows insane dedication. It's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I know them. I know
Yeah,
you guys.
cool.
I'm like, oh,
It's
yeah, I know
also,
her.
it's nice to be recognized for it, and how, you know, I think it, especially going from yachting to being a student is a crazy transition. But then again, I think it did really help me.
But it's also nice, there is a common thread as well, like ladies that have seen an issue, not necessarily an issue with themselves, but an issue which has led to a passion, which has really now led to a purpose, which is, you know, it's a cool transition to go through. And also, I have a lot of respect for professional study. And I think in certain areas, I believe professionals are the way forward. Mental health and nutrition are definitely one, because, you know, the whole of social media is full of people that are calling themselves nutritionists, that, you know, don't get me wrong, some of these courses, they will have value, but, you know, it's a lot more complicated than people imagine with nutrition. Same with mental health. And there's a time and a place for individuals and certain learnings, but if you have got a severe problem, then a professional is where you need to go. So you've done your degree now, and you're looking, well, what you've started, the Yacht Nutritionist, you've obviously, through your own experience, clocked that there was issues on board for yourself and other females.
Yeah.
Where
males
did it come?
As well.
Sorry?
Definitely
What?
males as well, but I'm yet to have my first male client. But I have had men reach out to me in the industry and say, you know, thank you for talking about what you're talking about. Thank you for dealing with this issue and all that kind of stuff. So it is men also, you know, struggle with this issue, but definitely it's predominantly female.
Yeah, it's. I mean, let's just cover the birds first. We'll hopefully get to the guys later. I've got some news coming up soon, so I won't divulge anything else.
Okay.
But ladies on board, it's a vain industry.
Yeah.
It's a vain industry, and you're put under high pressure. You're expected to work insane hours. It's a perfect storm, really, for issues to arise, would you say?
Absolutely, and that's what I say. It's if you didn't have food issues before yachting, like I did, chances are you're being they could be curated in and by yachting because of the high pressure, as you said, the body image, the vanity of the industry, and the food abundance. So the food abundance is just something that we're not used to being surrounded by, and every individual kind of has their way of eating at home, and you get on board and you don't know how to adapt. Like me, I couldn't adapt to the environment back in the day when I was young, when I was really struggling, when I thought I was doing the right things, when I thought I was getting the right information, but it turned out it was actually very detrimental to my health, and it was the wrong information for me because I was severely affected.
So obviously you've been working now for quite some time, what are the most common, would you say, the issues that you're observing, being contacted about?
Definitely feeling out of control around food. That's probably one of the ones in my application form that girls write all the time. Like, they just feel out of control around food and that they're constantly eating. Whenever there's food around, they're just eating it. And either they're maybe like sneaking to the snacks cupboard to have food, or they're in the pantry, they've had a meal before service, and then all the guests leftovers, and they're eating that as well. So yeah, feeling out of control around food is probably like the wording that I get a lot.
So, out of control eating, so like for issues for me, so I read, I can't remember what it's called now. It was talking about conscious eating, like actually paying attention to when you're hungry. Because like you
mindful
said,
eating?
at home, pardon?
Like mindful eating?
Yeah, like mindful eating.
Yeah.
So obviously at home, you would be working a normal job and your day's structured for when you're going to eat. You know, it is kind of like that way. And then also you'll be cooking for yourself or a few others. Like you said, on board, yes, it's very structured when you'll eat most of the time. But it's the amount that's available. Do you know what I mean? And it's all good. Like I only worked on one boat where the crew food was dubious, but most of the time,
I mean,
the
that's
rest
a
of
whole
it
other
was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversation on its own, that there's some incredible yacht chefs out there. That boat that I went to in the Med where I gained 10 kilos in 3 months, that chef was amazing. He was incredible and he went above and beyond for the crew. But then you'll have chefs like on that 40 meter I worked on who are just literally serving sausage, ribs,
Pasta.
pies, pasta, and it's pretty atrocious.
Yeah. Oh, I had a boat where it was just pasta. It was killer.
Because it kind of all goes hand in hand, right? It's like the food, so for example, if you have a girl who's trying to watch her weight, and it's okay to watch your weight. I'm not saying that it's bad, right, to care about what you look like, or to not. I'm not saying it's bad to care about what you look like. Like, it's okay to want to lose weight and to want to watch your weight. But if the food that's coming out of the galley is really terrible, full of oil, just like so fatty, you kind of lose the plot in your head. You're like, oh, I may as well slash all my other 4 tires because my one tire is, I have one flat tire. And then so you just start this like terrible cycle of starting to eat whatever and anything kind of stuff. So there's a lot of mindset stuff that goes into it as well.
So obviously uncontrollable eating. Anything else that has kind of been highlighted since you've got going? People quite common.
There is a lot of bulimia that's happening. So girls are making themselves sick. It's not within my scope of practice. I'll definitely say that. I'm not a trained eating disorder dietitian, but I do work with a clinical psychologist who is. So my clients that are, very much across the spectrum of anyone who I kind of think is beyond my scope, I also bring in my clinical psychologist. Her name is Steph, and she specializes in binge eating disorder and bulimia nervosa. So, it's happening quite commonly. Girls are making themselves sick, which is awful.
But is that brought on because of the out control? Like they go a bit too crazy at dinner, and then they're like, "Shit, I can't."
Then you get
it's
all
like
these thoughts,
purging.
It's purging. It's massive food guilt. You're like, holy shit, I can't believe I ate all that, because of the pressures then of your squirt size, right? And so you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I ate all that. I can't gain any weight. Oh my God, God forbid I gain weight. I might lose my job. I can't do this. And then they purge. Whether it's, obsessive exercise as well, taking laxatives. I don't know any girls who take laxatives. That hasn't come up. But yeah, so
That's not the trends, I suppose, at the moment, is it? I suppose there's other things out there. So we've talked about your the like eating myths and stuff and diet myths and give us some of your favorites that are absolute bollocks. This health food craziness that
the one and a lot of my followers are following this girl, and you should definitely unfollow her. I don't know her name, so I can't say it, but I would 100% say it. But she's this like crazy carnivore girl, and she's all about, eating raw marrow and raw steak and like drinking raw egg, and it is absolutely atrocious. It's so bad. It's like literally the recipe for Parasite. And then a lot of my followers are following this girl because she's like, oh, living the life of like peace and serenity and like being so good for my health. But then they're not following, someone like Dr. Ids, who's amazing. He's he's an MD, but he also did a master's in like human nutrition, and he's great. He has such good scientific information. I was actually going to post it on my Instagram, but my Instagram just got shut down. I don't know why. My account of all the accounts it got flagged for some reason. I think someone's reported me because this is the 4th time it's happened in like 6 months.
So do you think they're watching because nutrition does have, it's like the false information thing, or? Anyway.
Yeah, but I don't really, if you notice, I don't actually post that much nutritional information. I mostly post about like relationship with food stuff, and I'm very careful not to post too much nutrition information, because I don't want to promote fear. Like, don't eat this. I don't post stuff like, don't eat this. I said, because everything can fit into someone's diet. It's just about like knowing what and how to do that, basically. But yeah, it's my account right now. I don't have it. I deleted the app, and then anyway, it's a whole story. But what was I saying? Yeah, so there's the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet is the one right now that is so terrible for someone's health.
I can get like raw. Like, I know obviously carnivore diet's been around for a while, so you're eating steak, and there's a couple of quite prominent, famous people that have tried to practically cut out anything grainy, I think, and then they have green vegetables and then just eat meat.
I think the raw carnivore diet now is something that's trending, and it needs to die because it's
gross.
You will
to
die
start
from
with.
eating it.
Yeah, but it's gross. There's a reason why humans cooked meat and
exactly.
didn't eat.
But I watched one of her videos, Gobsmacked, was saying that it's better for digestion to eat raw meat, which is it's just inaccurate. It's just false information, because you do actually need to cook it. It helps to break down the proteins in it. It also kills bacteria.
What other corkers have you come across? Like, what other great things? I mean, are you a fan of the shake diet? That was I confess I did the shake diet when I was on board.
Yeah, I did the lemon detox diet. So that was the lemon, cayenne pepper, maple syrup. I did that one. Also, my chief stew did it. So there's a thing. If your chief stew is kind of onto something, maybe she'll like recruit all the stews as well, and everyone else starts to do the things and the diets and try this and that. I had a girl message me, and she said, what do you think about juice cleanses? And I said, no, because of this. And she's like, oh my God, my chief stew was just trying to get us to all do it as a group after we did, 3 back-to-back charters and we're all not feeling so great. And I said, instead just drink more water, try and go out on some walks, try to get some lean protein in there, get some more veggies, and you'll be feeling top-notch in, a week or 2, right? And she's like, okay, cool, thanks. And then I messaged her the next day and I was like, hey, how was dinner last night? And she's like, great, we had tacos. And I'm like, perfect.
Juice diet, that's basically just, it's just going to come out rapid at the other end, isn't it? It's not really much
because
slowing it down.
So
it's
speeding it up, and that's what people are so concerned now with gut health, right? But if you have diarrhea and liquid is coming out of your a-hole, so is your gut microbiome.
I watched a documentary in the UK. A gentleman, it was a documentary about what we're feeding our kids, but they didn't experiment on kids. Obviously, that's illegal in our country. So he did the experiment on himself, and additives. Okay,
right.
So his brain pleasure responses changed because of processed food.
Yeah.
And the documentary ended with his brain still mapped in the way that the additives had affected his brain. So he would want more, never be satisfied, all of those kind of things. What is your opinion on, is it like, obviously we live in a world of processed food. It's very difficult to get away from that. I don't think we're ever going to go back to nothing. Is there things to bear in mind with diet on board that, your environment, like if you came from the States, like I hear it's quite, the additives and the exposure to additives, like your environment's set against you in a way.
In terms of, are you saying like sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, it was just a really interesting documentary about like the chemicals that you're putting in was changing the pleasure, because that's how, from my understanding, that's the same thing as Ozempic works. It affects
So
the
definitely
want hormones.
so we definitely know that a lot of processed food, especially when they have the perfect amounts of sugar, fat, and salt, and you have to understand that there's literal food scientists out there that their job is to make that processed food the tastiest as possible, right? For you to not be satisfied on it, because they want you to keep having more and going back for more and going back for more. Take Doritos, for example. Like, they literally have people in a laboratory mixing chemicals, flavor enhancers, and all this kind of stuff to make that Dorito chip so damn tasty. So it's kind of, we can't really blame ourselves in that sense that, like, oh my God, I can't stop eating these, because that food is designed for you to not be able to resist it, type of thing. But knowledge is power, right? Like, just even knowing that, like, okay, this food is designed that way, so I'm gonna just have a few and then that's enough. I don't need to have any more. But that's also where, like, you have to have a mindset of abundance, right? If you ban all these foods and say, I can't eat any of these foods, they're bad for me, this is toxic, blah, 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 you're just more inclined to overdo them at one point or the other. In my house, I have the sweets cupboard and I have the savory cupboard, all chips and all cookies and that kind of stuff. And before working through my food stuff, there's no way I would have been able to have this food in the house, because I felt like I was addicted to it.
It is that the pleasure thing. Like, the
dopamine.
The dopamine. So being aware, processed food isn't the enemy, but it kind of is in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah. It's not. You're not going to die if you can control it, but it's going to be more difficult to control it because that's how it's designed, I suppose.
Exactly. And also the thing with sugar, when you do eat, so you have taste receptors in your mouth, sugar receptors in your mouth. You need to, so sugar, kind of like alcohol, you develop a tolerance to it. You need to have more and more sugar to have that same response and to have that same effect that it did, maybe last month. You need to have more of it. So often with people, like in clinic, when they come in, for example, probably someone that has type 2 diabetes, they eat a lot of sugar. It's not just sugar that causes diabetes. It's also fat, having a lot of saturated fat in your diet as well, the damage that it causes to your liver. But so in clinic, we'll basically need to wean someone off of sugar, slowly reducing their intake, basically, because you can't cut them off straight away because they'll freak out, right? But like, it's also the taste receptors in the mouth.
That's actually really interesting. I've never thought about sugar like that. Because there's been times on board where I've, gone through a fad of having green tea, and then to have, back in the day I had normal English tea with milk, and then sugar. And then I went back to it, and then I couldn't have sugar in it. But then
you probably found it too sweet.
But then when I was tired, I put some sugar in, and then all of a sudden you're back on the wagon of putting a tiny bit in, which then, then builds. That makes complete sense. Yeah. And that's what happened with the macaroons. On board in France. I'm tired. I'm just going to put one in my mouth. And
then, it's amazing that it does wake you up.
Nothing to see here. And then, I'll have another two. There's no evidence.
But they went back to yachting for that year, and I was very good at food at this time. This is how I was able to see a lot of the girls struggling with the same issues that I had. But what I used to do is I'd have a nap on charter. It was a heavy charter boat I was working on, and I'd have a nap. And I would actually eat some dried mango as soon as I woke up from my nap, because that would give me a jolt of sugar, and I'd be right back into my uniform and back on the floor like nothing had happened. So, sometimes you wake up from a nap and you felt like you were hit by a truck. So having some sugar helps that feeling dissipate.
I do quite like a bit of dried mango. Otherwise, it does look a little bit it doesn't look the best, basically. It's like... Right, so any other new fads? Obviously Huel is just another shake diet again. That's a new one around.
I wouldn't say, it's not healthy to replace every single meal, but if you are on the go and all you can do is have this drink, then it's actually I've seen the nutritional panel and they're quite decent.
Okay. Okay, the latest fad, Ozempic.
Yes, our GLP-1 receptors.
Yes. Yeah. Like the studies that are coming out on these are actually like really interesting. Like literally today there was an article saying that it might be beneficial for people that smoke because basically it takes the pleasure away. That's what I'm kind of understanding. It's obviously it wasn't even designed for that, which is just mad.
Yeah, it's a secondary response. It's basically, so the reason how it's doing this is basically it's a GLP-1 receptor. So your GLP-1 glucagon, is it glucagon? Hold on, you might have to edit this. Glucagon-like peptide 1, which is what our body naturally releases once we finish a meal. So it's our like satiety hormone, right? That we've had enough, we're finished. Ozempic is stimulating this receptor. It acts like this hormone, basically. And it slows down also the gastric emptying of your stomach into your digestive tract. So it keeps the food in your stomach, basically. So it keeps you fuller. You don't really feel like eating. You don't want to eat. Nausea as well is quite common. You're nauseous, so you just don't want to eat also, which is not ideal, but, I do have a client actually who is on Ozempic, and so she's also on board. She's actually in the med now and she's doing a full med season, and she prepared herself with all of her pens that she has for her injections and everything.
Yeah, but surely, like, isn't it for people that are like, it's a BMI over 30 something, no?
She has a very high BMI. I'm not a GP, right? But she has seen a doctor about this, and that's how she got her prescription. There is some kind of metabolic syndrome kind of stuff happening that she is incapable of losing weight herself. She's been on very, very low calories with no response. She's done a lot of exercise with no response, and her body's just not responding to like normal weight loss protocol. That this is something that she has sought out to try to lower her body fat percentage. And I really hope it works for her. I really do. I don't want her to be taking it forever, obviously. I mean, hopefully, I don't know. Because I don't have much experience with the drug itself, I don't actually know from my research and what I've read is that if you do come off it, you gain weight. I hope this isn't her case, and I hope this doesn't happen, because it would be great for someone like her who really, really, really struggles with weight loss if they could use it for a short period of time with very low side effects, and then be able to maintain after without having to inject themselves, obviously. But we don't know. I don't know. We don't know the long-term consequences of it.
Yeah, they're just resting on the fact that, people with diabetes have been taking it a long time, so the long-term effects shouldn't be too much, but then they're not taking it to control weight. So I suppose we'll see, you'll be at the forefront of seeing if it's, out in the wash. What I have read about it, is it called The Magic Pill? There was a podcast episode by Diary of a CEO guy. And a guy that's on it, so he's done a whole book about his experience.
I don't know this magic pill. What's that?
I'll send you the details of it. So he's written about his experience, and he's done loads of research, gone and spoken to like a whole bunch of people, and he just said, people that come off it do gain weight, because you're turning off the want. Okay, so whether that's a want because obviously from your perspective you're wanting it because that's how you deal with stress, or or it gets deeper than that. All it is, from what he explained, was all it is pausing, a bit like antidepressants, I suppose. Antidepressant is a pause, and then you're still going to have to do work to work out your relationship with food afterwards.
Exactly. So the magic pill isn't a pill. It's actually it's Ozempic. That's what you're saying.
It's Ozempic.
Okay, so it's about Ozempic. I thought you said there was
yeah.
a new one about a new drug called the magic pill or something.
No. He's just called it the magic pill because he did, like I said, he's on it. It's from his personal, but he's also a writer and a researcher and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'll send you the link of that episode because it is, there are he does portray it. I really should find out the name. He really does portray it in, it's an experiment as it is at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an experiment. There's going to be pros and cons to both, and this is the unknown bit.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that we're seeing a lot right now with Ozempic is thyroid cancer, and it turning your thyroid cells malignant. Unfortunately, that's one that is seeming to be a lot more prevalent with Ozempic users. But what was I going to say? Damn it. Oh yeah, food behavior. That's the one thing. So that's basically what I work on. That's my specialization is food behavior in relationship with food. And that you're absolutely right that you can inject yourself, you can take these pills, whatever it is, but it doesn't change your food behavior, right? Your relationship with food. And that's what, someone like me who did, I lost, I think in total it's like 13 kilos that I've lost unintentionally, right? From healing my relationship with food because I was such a bad emotional eater. Anything would happen in my life, any kind of stressor, and I'm eating. Whereas now I can feel through that stressor and food, it doesn't even come into mind. It's not even there anymore. It's not even related. So it's, yeah.
You think society, obviously, everything, it's everything in moderation, and I don't know whether food is taken that seriously unless people start to get really, really overweight. If you're using alcohol because that's how you're dealing with stress, it's very obvious very quickly. Substance abuse, drugs and stuff like that, very obvious very so quickly. But food, she's just put on a few pounds. Obviously, she's just letting herself go and. Do you know what I mean? It's not maybe given.
Totally. I think 100% because also in yachting, it's a joke. Oh, the stews can't stay out of the snacks cupboard. And she's gained her, her green 10 or whatever it is. Her, it's a known thing that green stews just gain 10 kilos or whatever it is. But it's not taken seriously enough when... You can't see it. No one knew how badly I was suffering and struggling from this because also I have such a bubbly, vivacious personality that I was also able to hide it so well. And it was so scary and horrible, and I was so ashamed of it to ask for help, and that I was actually really struggling with something so simple as food. It has such a horrible connotation and taboo and
but it's just willpower, isn't it? You're obviously not got any willpower. You just need to stop. It's so easy. Just stop. I'm like, really? I mean, I think one of the hardest times for me was I tried desperately hard. So having a baby during lockdown, I got obsessed with making lactation cookies. But they were like oats and like flaxseed and things like that. But obviously they had a ton of sugar in it, and I was just baking like nearly every day.
Did the cookies work? Did they help?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff that helps production. But I'd given birth during one of the most stressful times that we've experienced as human beings on the planet. And how my stress was. So if you're stressed, you don't lactate. So if your lactation goes down, so it's a response basically. If you're moving around too much, there's loads of things, don't stay hydrated, but stress can become a factor. So I just got obsessive about lactation stuff, like taking extra bits and pieces to just make sure that my daughter was fed.
Trying to feed your child. I mean, I understand how you would become obsessed with that and want to try everything that you can to produce the food for your baby. And I think,
it's a massive thing for females, the stress on board and obviously your weight and stuff like that. And then when you're a mum, what you're told, what you can and can't eat is just bonkers. And the amount of pressure, if you're breastfeeding as well. I mean, one of the things that I just found absolutely hilarious, and it just blew my mind recently. So one of the individuals in control of a health authority in the UK came out and said that obviously a trans woman is given lots of hormones, they can lactate, and that milk is as good as a woman's. And I'm like, I'm really, really sorry, it might be possible, but that's hormone induced. Like, you don't, like, when you're breastfeeding your child, you're bombarded with all of this information that you should be like pure as the driven snow when it comes to food, because obviously it's all going straight into your baby.
Just messaged me and they said, your Instagram profile, what happened? And I'm like, it was blocked.
What is going on with that? Right, let's just finish off.
Weird. Okay. But no, so what you were saying before about, just the lactation thing is, I do, in my studies, we were talking about how if we were to inject men with prolactin, the lactation hormone, they would start to lactate as well. So yeah, it's a very interesting concept.
It's a very interesting concept, but I think it's a bit, experiencing being a mother and the bombardment of what, you should and shouldn't eat and all of that kind of stuff.
You have to be an angel.
Strawberry thing. Tomatoes, be worried about like your kid. And now they're saying that actually when you're pregnant, you should eat all of those because it exposes the fetus, so you're less likely to get allergies. Honestly, it's just a minefield. And I really appreciate somebody like yourself that's like, right, I'm going to go into the science and actually start explaining it in a normal, because the amount of information out there is just bonkers.
It's it's scary.
Eating raw eggs and nuts from the garden, given some individuals
some of it is just so unrealistic. You can't live your life like that.
No.
Yeah.
And considering that food is supposed to be the communal thing, do you know what I mean? Like, there is a lot about having a meal with a family and bringing you all together, and that is something I think in these days is a kind of a bit lost.
Totally.
And if you start putting barriers, saying I can't eat this, I can't eat that, then you're the whole bringing together to eat together. That's obviously going to have a knock on.
Totally.
Yeah. I think we could cover a load of different topics, if I'm honest. I really do.
I think so as well.
What we might do is, when this podcast episode is released, we will all do a Q&A and get people to send in specific questions, and then maybe do another catch-up podcast.
Yeah, cool.
Just to kind of
it would be interesting to talk about
questions.
fertility as well, because I'm getting more and more into fertility nutrition and also like support during pregnancy. I just talking about pregnancy and how scary it can be with all the information that's out there, like what to eat while you're pregnant and stuff. I was actually looking for an Amazon book, and I found one. I'm going to read it to you. And sorry, I know we're kind of running over time, but I pulled it up. I sent it to this chief stew because I was just like, man, it's crazy the amount of information, because I'm helping her research. And so it's called The Conventional Pregnancy Wisdom is Wrong and What You Really Need to Know. Expecting Better. Drinking Safely During Pregnancy. Why Gaining Too Much Weight Might Be Safer Than Gaining Too Little. Why Sushi and Cheese Aren't So Bad, But Gardening Could Be. Why Bed Rest Is Actually a Terrible Idea. And I don't really know too much about pregnancy nutrition. We covered a lot of it back in my studies, but I haven't reviewed that in a long time. But from me reading this book title, I don't want new information. I want to know what's worked for the past 30, 40, 50 years. I don't want to change that, because I'm not willing to risk, now eating sushi and now eating soft cheeses and this kind of stuff, right? Like, I want to stick with the old stuff and not bring in the raw carnivore pregnancy
the population survived before we started taking these things away. Like, we all existed, like what I ate, we're all here still. So there's just so much, bombarded with information. Like, when I got pregnant I went to France I just found out I was pregnant, so probably coming up for like 8-9 weeks maybe. And in France they don't care. They eat shellfish, they eat cheese, they eat whatever. Like, those women just eat whatever they want, and they still reproduce. Like, there's kids being born in France. But I remember going to this restaurant and we had this incredible food, and I put up a picture, because I don't put up pictures of food, but we went to this restaurant, it only served 2 dishes, and oh my God, it was incredible. It's like this goat's cheese, and like, it was just mind-blowing. And I got a message from my sister saying, you can't eat that cheese. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
stop ruining my moment. I'm eating it. I ate it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
my
but I
daughter's
mean, like,
still
do you or
alive,
don't
so
you?
we're okay.
Like, yeah. But that, like, I don't know, right? I don't know. I haven't done much research about it, and so that's my kind of new area that I'm diving into, is all of this kind of pregnancy nutrition.
Amazing, because we're going to be doing a series on fertility, because it's come up lots of times that obviously ladies that work on board, they're leaving it later to have children. They need to be aware of a few factors of their fertility. If you add an eating disorder to that as well, you know, it might make it more difficult because it affects your cycle. All of these things are all interconnected. So we've got a lot of topics that we need to cover, and it'd be lovely to have you back on. And I know that listeners will have a lot of questions, and rightly so.
I need to educate myself on all this stuff.
Yeah, I know, more study. Never stops.
Yeah.
Never stops. You'll end up doing the masters. You'll end up doing the masters.
A part of me really wants to, but then again, it's like, time. I don't have the time.
You'll find the time. You'll find it.
We'll
But it's
see.
you've opened Pandora's box now. It's never ending, and there's constant research. So it's going to be down there. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely have you on again to be our nutritionist to consult on all of the topics that we're going to cover. If you want to speak to Kat, I highly recommend it. Yacht Nutritionist is obviously when the socials are working.
The Yacht Nutritionist,
The Yacht Nutritionist, when the old Instagram's back up. But you can find her. Obviously, all of the details will be in our info as well. She'll be on again, so you'll be able to tune into her. But thank you so much for giving us an insight into what you're doing. What you're doing is incredible. And we look forward to having you on again.
We'll chat soon.
Yeah. If any of you listening right now have enjoyed this podcast, there are many other episodes. We'd love you to join us again. If you're interested in the Pearls of Wisdom project, we've got our website with more information. We've got obviously our affiliates that do a lot of good work to support women on and off the boats. If you want even more than that, we've got our Pearls of Wisdom app where you can get involved as a community and help us start making changes all over the place. But thank you very much, and see you next time.